How did America's first pizza slice manage to spark a culinary revolution that would reshape an entire nation's eating habits? What made this simple combination of bread, tomatoes, and cheese so irresistible that it transformed from immigrant street food into the country's most beloved comfort dish? And why did it take crossing an ocean, adapting to new ingredients, and completely reinventing itself before pizza could conquer American kitchens from coast to coast? Most people imagine pizza's ancient ancestors as something recognizable, maybe rustic but familiar. The reality is far stranger. These early topped breads served more as edible dishes than actual food, and some looked more like thick crackers than anything you'd want to eat for dinner. This evening's journey will uncover how centuries of Mediterranean bread-making traditions slowly evolved into the foundation for America's pizza obsession. And perhaps the gentle rhythm of kneading dough and rising yeast will help slow your thoughts just enough to welcome the kind of deep rest your body craves. Subscribing to these historical explorations helps support more content like this, but only when it feels right to you. No rush or pressure involved. Share in the comments what your favorite pizza memory might be, or simply let me know what part of the world you're listening from tonight. I always enjoy connecting with fellow food history enthusiasts. As we begin, maybe take a moment to adjust your position. Let your breathing settle into a comfortable rhythm, and prepare to wander back through time where the warm glow of ancient ovens and the comforting aroma of baking bread will carry you gently toward tonight's rest. You find yourself standing in the warm glow of an ancient Roman kitchen around the 1st century AD, watching as a baker shapes simple dough into flat, round discs. The air smells of wood smoke and yeast, and you notice how these early baked rounds serve a purpose that might surprise you. They're not really meant to be the main meal, but rather edible plates, sturdy enough to hold stews, meats, and vegetables without breaking apart. These Roman focaccia breads, ancestors to what we now call focaccia, represent one of pizza's earliest documented relatives. Archaeological evidence from Pompeii shows bakeries with large stone ovens, capable of producing hundreds of these topped breads daily, with charred remains still visible in the ancient ruins. The Romans topped them with olive oil, herbs, and sometimes cheese, creating what you can recognize as the first systematic approach to topped bread in Western cuisine. But here's where it gets interesting, and honestly, I find this part fascinating. The Romans didn't think of these as special dishes at all. They were practical solutions to a dining problem, edible utensils more than actual food. Without proper plates, you needed something sturdy enough to hold your meal, and the bread absorbed all those delicious flavors from whatever you placed on top, turning what started as a simple tool into the actual highlight of the meal. You can picture the scene. Roman workers grabbing these warm rounds from bakeries, loading them up with whatever the tavern keeper had simmering in clay pots, then eating the whole thing, plate and all. It's almost comical when you think about it, but also brilliant in its simplicity, and this practical approach to eating becomes part of pizza's essential DNA. As centuries pass and Rome's influence wanes, you witness something remarkable happening across the Italian peninsula. The topped bread concept doesn't disappear with the empire. It evolves and adapts, becoming something uniquely Italian rather than simply Roman. In different regions, bakers begin developing their own variations based on local ingredients, climate, and cultural preferences. In Liguria, they create thin, crispy rounds topped with olive oil and salt, almost like ancient predecessors to modern focaccia. In Tuscany, they develop slightly thicker versions with herbs and sometimes onions, while further south, these baked creations become even more substantial, designed to satisfy hungry laborers and farmers. The medieval period brings something crucial to this story: the development of distinct regional Italian identities, and with them, unique approaches to bread making. Each area develops its own techniques, influenced by what grows locally, how the climate affects rising dough, and what the local population considers good food. You're watching the birth of Italian regional cuisine, centuries before anyone thinks to call it that. You can trace these distinct styles emerging in Naples, Rome, Genoa, and dozens of other Italian cities, each contributing elements that would eventually combine into what we recognize as pizza. But scholars continue to debate exactly which regions developed the most sophisticated techniques and which innovations proved most influential in pizza's eventual evolution, making this period as mysterious as it is important. You notice how these regional differences create a fascinating culinary map across Italy, like watching different languages develop from the same root. In the mountainous regions, where wheat grows differently and winters are harsh, the topped breads become heartier and more substantial, designed to provide serious nutrition for people doing physical work. Near the coast, where olive oil flows more freely and the climate stays mild, these creations become lighter and more aromatic, almost delicate by comparison. These aren't just random differences, you realize. They're careful adaptations to local conditions and tastes that would prove absolutely crucial when Italian immigrants eventually carried these traditions across the Atlantic. Each region is essentially developing its own approach to the same basic concept, creating a toolkit of methods that future pizza makers could mix and match, depending on what ingredients and conditions they encountered in their new homes. Medieval Italian bakers also developed something that modern pizza makers still use today: the concept of the communal oven. These large stone ovens, heated with wood fires, serve entire neighborhoods rather than individual families. You can imagine the daily ritual: families bringing their carefully prepared dough to be baked, creating a social gathering around bread making that extends far beyond simple nutrition. This community approach to baking, with its shared knowledge and collective wisdom, becomes part of the cultural DNA that immigrants will later transplant to American cities. But more than that, it establishes bread making as a social activity, something that brings people together rather than just filling their stomachs. Perhaps most importantly, you notice how these medieval bakers begin experimenting with toppings more systematically than their Roman predecessors. They discover that certain combinations work better than others, that some ingredients complement the bread while others overpower it, that timing matters when you're adding things to hot dough. These aren't accidents anymore. They're the beginnings of what we might call culinary science. You watch them learn that oil needs to go on before herbs, that cheese melts better when added at specific moments, that some vegetables release too much water if you're not careful. It's like watching the slow development of rules that no one's writing down, but everyone's learning through trial and error, success and disaster. The real breakthrough comes in the late medieval period, when Italian bakers begin treating topped breads not just as practical solutions, but as deliberate culinary creations. Instead of simply using bread as an edible plate, they start designing the entire combination from the ground up, making the dough thinner in some regions, thicker in others, specifically engineered to work with particular toppings. You witness the emergence of what culinary scholars call intentional cuisine, the moment when topped breads stop being happy accidents and become purposeful dishes. Bakers start keeping track of successful combinations, passing recipes from master to apprentice, creating the first systematic approaches to what we might recognize as pizza making. I have to admit, there's something deeply satisfying about watching this transition from chaos to craft, like seeing order emerge from delicious experimentation. This shift represents something profound in culinary history, a change in thinking that separates medieval Italian bread making from everything that came before. Instead of putting leftovers on bread out of necessity, bakers begin creating specific ingredient combinations for their flavor profiles, developing preferences for certain cheeses with certain herbs, particular oils with specific dough thicknesses, transforming what started as practical eating into something approaching art. During this same period, you observe the development of specialized tools and methods that seem almost modern in their sophistication. Bakers create long-handled wooden peels for sliding rounds in and out of hot ovens safely, develop approaches for achieving consistent dough thickness, and perfect ways of managing the intense heat of stone ovens without burning their creations. These innovations might seem minor when you're watching them develop, but they represent the technical foundation that will eventually support pizza's mass production in America. Every method being perfected in these medieval Italian bakeries, every tool being refined through daily use, becomes part of the knowledge base that immigrants will carry to their new homes, adapting these old world approaches to new world ingredients and conditions. The medieval Italian approach to topped breads also establishes something that still drives pizza culture today: the concept of regional pride in food. Different cities begin claiming superiority for their particular styles, creating the kind of passionate local loyalty that you still see in arguments between New York and Chicago pizza fans, or debates about authentic Neapolitan methods versus modern innovations. This isn't just about food preferences, you realize. It's about identity, tradition, and community belonging. When someone defends their city's pizza style, they're really defending their cultural heritage, their family's history, their sense of place in the world. As you prepare to move forward in time, you can sense the foundations being set for something much larger than anyone in these medieval bakeries could imagine. These Italian topped breads, with their regional variations and developing methods, are about to encounter something that will change everything. The tomato, still unknown in Europe, waits in the New World, and when it finally arrives in Italian kitchens, it will transform these traditional creations into something recognizable as modern pizza. But that transformation is still centuries away, and the patient development of traditions you're witnessing will eventually cross an ocean, adapt to new ingredients and new tastes, and become the foundation for one of America's most beloved foods. The medieval Italian bakers working by flickering firelight have no idea, but they're creating the culinary DNA for a revolution that won't fully unfold until their descendants reach the streets of New York, Boston, and Philadelphia. The warm stone ovens continue glowing in the darkness, and the aroma of baking bread drifts through narrow medieval streets, carrying with it the promise of flavors and traditions that will someday reshape an entire continent's approach to food. You find yourself stepping into the bustling streets of 18th century Naples, where the air carries the mingled scents of garlic, wood smoke, and something entirely new, the sharp sweetness of tomatoes. This is where the story takes its most crucial turn, where simple topped breads meet an ingredient that will transform them into something the world has never seen before. Walking through the narrow cobblestone streets, you notice something remarkable happening at small street stalls and bakery fronts. Neapolitan vendors have begun adding this exotic New World fruit, the tomato, to their traditional bread creations. But this isn't happening overnight, and honestly, it's messier and more experimental than most pizza origin stories suggest. The tomato arrived in Europe from the Americas in the 16th century, but it took nearly 200 years before Southern Italians, particularly the working poor of Naples, began using it systematically on bread. You can trace this gradual acceptance through contemporary accounts, church records, and even complaints from social critics who thought eating tomatoes was dangerous or immoral. You observe these early Neapolitan pizza vendors, and they're nothing like the skilled pizzaiolos you might imagine. Most are simply bakers or street food sellers trying to make cheap, filling meals for Naples' growing population of laborers, dock workers, and urban poor. They're not creating haute cuisine. They're solving the practical problem of feeding people quickly and affordably. The topped breads they're using aren't even standardized yet. Some are thick and chewy, others thin and crispy. Some vendors use just oil and garlic. Others experiment with adding crushed tomatoes, chunks of cheese, or whatever ingredients they can afford. According to contemporary accounts from travelers and local writers, these early pizzas vary wildly from vendor to vendor and even from day to day, depending on what's available. But here's what's fascinating, and scholars continue to debate the exact timeline of this development. These Neapolitan street vendors are accidentally creating the basic formula that will eventually conquer the world. bread plus tomato plus heat equals something magical. They're discovering that tomatoes don't just add flavor, they add moisture and acidity that transforms the entire eating experience. You notice how this food revolution is happening specifically among Naples' working class, and I have to say, there's something beautifully democratic about watching culinary innovation emerge from necessity rather than luxury. The wealthy Neapolitans, like wealthy people everywhere, stick to familiar, prestigious foods. They're not interested in street vendor innovations or experimental combinations of peasant ingredients. This creates an interesting dynamic where pizza develops as distinctly working-class cuisine, carrying social and cultural meanings that will follow it across the Atlantic. Contemporary accounts from the 1700s describe these early pizzas as fast, cheap street food, sold from small stalls or carried through the streets on large flat baskets. Vendors would call out their offerings and customers would eat standing up or walking, using their hands rather than utensils. This informal, accessible approach to eating becomes part of pizza's essential character, something that no amount of upscale restaurant treatment can completely erase. Even today, when you grab a slice and eat it walking down the street, you're participating in a tradition that started in these narrow Neapolitan alleys. The famous story of Pizza Margherita, supposedly created in 1889 for Queen Margherita of Savoy, represents the moment when pizza gains royal recognition. According to popular legend, pizzaiolo Raphael Esposito created a pizza with tomatoes, mozzarella, and basil to represent the colors of the Italian flag. Whether this story is historically accurate remains a matter of scholarly debate, but it illustrates pizza's journey from street food to something worthy of royal attention. What you're witnessing in 18th and 19th century Naples is actually a perfect storm of culinary innovation. The city's position as a major port brings together ingredients from around the Mediterranean and beyond, creating opportunities for experimentation. The growing urban population creates demand for cheap, portable food, while the Neapolitan bakers, working within their traditional bread-making methods, prove remarkably creative at incorporating new ingredients. Contemporary observers help separate fact from folklore in their written accounts. English and French travelers write about encountering these strange, tomato-topped breads in Naples, usually with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Local Neapolitan writers mention them in passing, usually dismissively, as food for the lower classes. Church records show the growth of small bakeries and food stalls in working-class neighborhoods. These sources paint a picture of gradual evolution rather than sudden invention, which feels more realistic when you think about how food actually develops. The pizza that's emerging in Naples isn't the result of one brilliant innovator. It's the collective creation of dozens of small vendors, each making tiny adjustments and improvements to attract customers and stay competitive. You also observe how Naples' specific geography and climate contribute to pizza's development in ways that wouldn't be reproducible elsewhere. The volcanic soil around Mount Vesuvius produces particularly flavorful tomatoes, with an acidity and sweetness that works perfectly with bread and cheese. The local water has mineral qualities that affect how bread dough behaves, creating textures that bakers in other regions struggle to replicate. This geographical specificity becomes important later because when Italian immigrants bring pizza methods to America, they'll have to adapt to completely different ingredients and conditions. The mozzarella won't taste the same. The tomatoes will have different acidity levels. Even the water will behave differently in bread recipes. But the basic principles they're developing in Naples, the understanding of how tomatoes, cheese, and bread work together, will prove remarkably transferable. The social dynamics you're witnessing are equally important for pizza's future success. Pizza is developing as democratic food, accessible to anyone with a few coins. It doesn't require special knowledge, refined palates, or elaborate dining rituals. You buy it, you eat it, you go about your day. This simplicity and accessibility will prove crucial when pizza encounters American urban life, where speed and convenience matter as much as taste. During this period, you notice that different neighborhoods in Naples begin developing their own subtle variations. The vendors near the port might have access to different spices from visiting ships. Those closer to dairy farms can get fresher cheese, while the ones near vegetable markets experiment with additional toppings. This neighborhood-by-neighborhood variation creates a template for how pizza will later adapt to different American cities and regions, each developing its own local preferences and specialties. What's particularly interesting, and historians have documented this through business records and local accounts, is how competition between vendors drives constant innovation. Each street seller needs something to distinguish their product, whether it's a particular combination of toppings, a special method for browning the crust, or simply faster service. This competitive pressure creates ongoing experimentation and improvement. The Neapolitan pizza vendors are also developing the service model that will eventually spread worldwide. The idea of food that's prepared quickly, served immediately, and eaten casually. They're not creating restaurants with tables and elaborate service. They're creating what we'd now recognize as fast food, centuries before anyone used that term. By the mid-1800s, you observe that pizza has become woven into Naples' urban fabric in ways that extend far beyond simple commerce. It appears in local songs, stories, and cultural references. Street vendors become neighborhood fixtures, known by name and reputation, trusted sources of reliable, affordable meals. Pizza eating becomes part of Naples' social rhythm, connecting work schedules, social gatherings, and daily routines. This cultural integration represents something that many food origin stories miss: the way successful foods become part of social life rather than just culinary novelties. Pizza in Naples isn't just about taste or convenience. It's about community, tradition, and identity. These cultural meanings will travel with Italian immigrants when they eventually leave for America, carried in their memories and muscle memory as much as their written recipes. Perhaps most importantly, what you're witnessing in 19th century Naples is the refinement of methods that will prove scalable. The vendors who succeed are those who figure out how to maintain quality while serving many customers quickly. They develop systems for dough preparation, topping application, and oven management that can handle volume without sacrificing consistency, creating the operational foundation that will later support pizza's transformation into a mass market food. As you prepare to leave 19th century Naples, you can sense that something larger is about to begin. The pizza that's evolved here, from simple bread experiments to refined street food culture, is about to encounter massive historical forces. Economic hardship, political upheaval, and dreams of better opportunities will soon drive millions of Southern Italians to seek new lives across the Atlantic. When they pack their belongings for the journey to America, they'll carry these pizza methods and traditions with them, along with their hopes, fears, and determination to build better lives. They have no way of knowing that their humble street food, born from necessity in the narrow streets of Naples, will eventually help define American cuisine. The wood-fired ovens continue glowing in Neapolitan bakeries. The vendors continue calling out their offerings, and the distinctive aroma of tomatoes, cheese, and baking bread continues drifting through the Mediterranean air, carrying with it the promise of flavors that will soon find new homes in cities thousands of miles away. The year is 1880, and you find yourself standing on a crowded dock in Naples, watching as families gather their few precious belongings and prepare for a journey that will change everything. The air is thick with salt spray, nervous excitement, and the weight of leaving everything familiar behind. These Southern Italian families are about to carry their culinary traditions across an ocean, including those simple tomato-topped breads that have sustained them through generations of hardship. What you're witnessing is part of the largest voluntary migration in human history, as economic desperation and political upheaval drive millions of Southern Italians to seek new lives in America. Between 1880 and 1920, approximately 3.8 million Italians will make this crossing, and tucked among their memories of home are the recipes, techniques, and food traditions that will eventually transform American cuisine. These aren't wealthy travelers with extensive luggage, you notice. Most carry everything they own in a single trunk or cloth bundle. But what they lack in material possessions, they make up for in cultural knowledge. Every woman boarding these ships carries in her mind the exact feel of proper dough, the timing for adding oil to bread, the combinations of herbs and cheese that her grandmother taught her. You observe how food knowledge travels differently than written recipes, and honestly, this fascinates me because it's so much more resilient than we might expect. These Italian mothers and daughters aren't carrying cookbooks. They're carrying muscle memory. They know by touch when dough has the right consistency, by smell when oil is hot enough, by instinct how long bread needs in the oven. This embodied knowledge will prove crucial when they encounter completely different ingredients in America. American flour behaves differently than Italian flour. The tomatoes have different acidity levels. Even the water has different mineral content that affects how bread rises. But the fundamental understanding of how these elements work together, that travels perfectly in their hands and hearts. The groups you're watching represent primarily the Mezzogiorno. Southern Italy, including Campania, Calabria, Sicily, and other regions where topped breads have been part of daily life for generations. Each region brings its own variations, its own preferred combinations of ingredients, its own subtle techniques that will eventually blend together in American cities. As the ship pulls away from Naples, you can sense the mixture of hope and heartbreak among the passengers. They're leaving behind not just places, but entire ways of life, social networks, and food customs that connect them to centuries of ancestry. Yet they're also carrying those same customs forward, adapting them to whatever conditions they'll find in their new homeland. The journey across the Atlantic takes weeks, and during this time, you observe something remarkable happening in the ship's cramped quarters. Italian immigrants from different regions, who might never have met in the old country, begin sharing food knowledge and techniques. A woman from Calabria teaches her neighbors how to preserve tomatoes for long voyages, while another group from Campania shares their method for making bread without traditional ovens. Here's something quirky that I find delightful. These ocean crossings accidentally become floating culinary schools, where regional Italian cooking methods get mixed together in ways that never would have happened back home. By the time these ships reach American ports, the passengers have begun developing hybrid approaches that combine the best techniques from multiple Italian regions. The transition from ship to shore brings its own challenges, and you witness how quickly everything changes once these immigrant groups reach Ellis Island. Immigration officials process them rapidly, often changing or shortening their names to something easier for American tongues to pronounce. But what can't be changed or shortened, what survives every bureaucratic interaction, is their knowledge of how to turn simple ingredients into satisfying meals. The neighborhoods where these Italian newcomers settle, primarily in New York, Boston, Philadelphia, and other East Coast cities, become laboratories for culinary adaptation. You watch as they discover that American ingredients require different approaches. The local mozzarella doesn't stretch the same way. The tomatoes are less acidic. The flour has different protein content that affects how dough behaves. But rather than abandoning their traditional methods, these immigrant cooks begin the delicate process of adaptation, adjusting their techniques to work with available ingredients while preserving the essential character of their food. This isn't just about sustaining themselves. It's about maintaining cultural identity in a place that often seems hostile to foreign customs. The early Italian-American neighborhoods you're observing develop their own unique food culture, distinct from what they left behind in Italy, but also different from mainstream American cuisine. Food historians continue to debate whether this culinary evolution happened primarily through deliberate experimentation or accidental discovery, but the creative results speak for themselves. You notice how Italian immigrant women become the primary carriers of food culture, teaching their daughters not just specific recipes, but entire approaches to cooking. They pass on the understanding that good food comes from patience, quality ingredients, and attention to small details that make the difference between ordinary and extraordinary meals. These women also serve as cultural bridges, gradually introducing their non-Italian neighbors to Italian flavors and cooking methods. Sometimes this happens through simple kindness, sharing a meal with a struggling neighbor. Other times through necessity, taking in boarders who need feeding or starting small food businesses to supplement household income. During this period, you observe the emergence of what culinary scholars call Italian-American cuisine, a unique fusion that's neither purely Italian nor purely American, but something entirely new. The topped breads that these immigrant cooks remember from Naples begin appearing in different forms, adapted to American ovens. American ingredients and American tastes. Some stick closely to traditional methods, using whatever substitutions they can find to recreate the flavors of home. Others embrace experimentation, discovering that certain American ingredients actually improve their traditional recipes. Still others develop entirely new approaches, inspired by their Italian heritage, but designed specifically for their new circumstances. What's particularly interesting, and I find this aspect of immigration stories deeply moving, is how food becomes a way of maintaining connection to home while also building new communities. Italian immigrant groups use shared meals to strengthen bonds with other newcomers, creating support networks that extend far beyond simple friendship. The children growing up in these Italian-American households occupy a unique position in this culinary evolution. They learn their mother's traditional techniques, but they also absorb American food preferences through school, work, and social interactions with non-Italian neighbors. This generation becomes the bridge between Old World methods and New World possibilities. You watch as these Italian-American children begin modifying their household's recipes to appeal to American tastes, making them less garlicky, less oily, more familiar to non-Italian palates. Sometimes this creates tension within households, as older generations worry about losing authentic customs, while younger generations focus on acceptance and economic success. But this tension also drives innovation. The need to make Italian food appealing to American customers, while maintaining enough authenticity to satisfy Italian households, creates pressure for constant experimentation and refinement. By the 1890s and early 1900s, you observe Italian immigrant entrepreneurs beginning to open small food businesses, bakeries, groceries, and simple eating establishments that serve both Italian newcomers and curious American customers. These businesses become testing grounds for Italian-American cuisine, places where traditional methods meet market demands. The topped breads that these business owners remember from Naples begin appearing in American bakeries, but adapted for local conditions and tastes. Some bakers make them thicker to satisfy American preferences for substantial meals. Others add ingredients that aren't traditional but appeal to local customers. Still others focus on speed and convenience to compete with other quick food options. What you're witnessing is the foundation for pizza's eventual American success, not just the transplanting of Italian recipes, but the patient work of adaptation and innovation that makes foreign food accessible to new audiences while preserving its essential appeal. As you prepare to move forward in time, you can sense that these Italian immigrant communities have created something precious and powerful. They've successfully transported not just recipes, but entire approaches to food, kinship, and community across an ocean and into a completely different cultural context. The children growing up in these neighborhoods are absorbing lessons that extend far beyond cooking, learning that food can be a bridge between cultures, a source of pride and identity, and a path to economic opportunity. They have no way of knowing it yet, but they're preparing to transform American cuisine in ways that will eventually reach every corner of the continent. The aroma of garlic and tomatoes begins drifting from tenement windows. The sound of Italian voices mingles with the noise of American streets, and somewhere in these crowded neighborhoods, the foundations are being laid for a culinary revolution that will make pizza as American as anything born on this soil. You find yourself walking through the narrow streets of Little Italy in New York City around 1895, where the aroma of garlic and fresh bread drifts from small storefront bakeries. These modest establishments, tucked between tenements and small shops, represent something entirely new in American food culture. Italian immigrant bakers are beginning to adapt their traditional recipes for American customers, and in the process, they're creating the foundation for what will eventually become America's pizza industry. The bakery shops you observe aren't grand establishments. Most are simple one-room operations where immigrant households work from dawn to dusk, mixing dough by hand, tending wood-fired ovens, and serving a mix of Italian immigrants homesick for familiar flavors and curious American neighbors willing to try something new. The owners often live in apartments above their businesses, making these operations as much about survival as culinary ambition. What strikes you immediately is how different these early Italian-American establishments are from the pizzerias you might imagine. Most don't even call what they're making pizza, instead using terms like tomato pie or simply describing them as bread with tomatoes. Here's something wonderfully quirky. Many of these bakers are essentially inventing American pizza without realizing it, creating a completely new food category while thinking they're just adapting old recipes. The topped breads they're producing vary wildly from shop to shop, some thick and focaccia-like, others thin and crispy, each baker adapting their household recipes to available ingredients and local preferences. You observe how these early entrepreneurs face a constant balancing act, trying to maintain authenticity while appealing to American tastes. Some bakers stick closely to Neapolitan traditions, using minimal toppings and emphasizing the quality of bread and tomatoes. Others experiment boldly, adding ingredients that aren't traditional but appeal to local customers, creating hybrid creations that satisfy both Italian immigrants and American curiosity. The customer base in these early establishments tells its own story, and honestly, I find it fascinating how food becomes a bridge between cultures in such practical ways. During the day, you see Italian immigrant workers stopping by for quick, familiar meals that remind them of home. In the evenings, American neighbors venture in, drawn by appetizing aromas and affordable prices, gradually developing tastes for flavors they've never encountered before. Business records from this period, including handwritten ledgers and receipts that still survive in some family collections, show these operations running on incredibly thin margins. Most charge just a few cents for a large piece of topped bread, making profit only through volume and household labor. The entire operation typically involves multiple generations, with grandmothers preparing toppings, fathers managing ovens, mothers handling customers, and children helping with deliveries. What's particularly interesting about this period is how these Italian immigrant bakers begin developing distinctly American innovations, driven by necessity rather than tradition. American ovens behave differently than Neapolitan wood-fired ovens, requiring adjustments in dough thickness and cooking time. American flour has different protein content, affecting how dough rises and browns. Even American tomatoes, while plentiful, have different acidity levels that require recipe modifications. You watch these bakers experiment with solutions, some adding sugar to balance less acidic tomatoes, others adjusting oil content to work with American flour. Still others modifying oven temperatures and timing to achieve familiar textures with unfamiliar equipment. These aren't just recipe changes, they're fundamental adaptations that will shape how pizza develops in America. The social dynamics in these early establishments also reveal something important about how immigrant food culture evolves. Italian customers often have strong opinions about authenticity, criticizing bakers who stray too far from traditional methods. American customers, meanwhile, prefer familiar flavors and textures, pushing bakers toward modifications that make Italian food more accessible to non-Italian palates. Culinary historians continue to debate which specific shops deserve credit for particular innovations during this period, especially regarding who first began selling individual slices rather than whole pies, and which bakers pioneered specific topping combinations, but the collective creativity is undeniable. Some establishments begin making their topped breads thicker to satisfy American preferences for substantial meals. Others experiment with cheese varieties, discovering that certain American cheeses actually work better than traditional Italian varieties when melted in American ovens. You also observe the emergence of what might be called Italian-American customer service, a more casual, interactive approach than either traditional Italian formality or American business practices. Bakers often chat with customers about toppings, offering samples of new combinations, creating relationships that extend beyond simple transactions. This personal touch becomes part of the appeal, making these establishments neighborhood gathering places rather than just food vendors. The physical layout of these early operations also reflects their hybrid nature. Unlike traditional Italian operations, which often separate production from sales, these American businesses typically display their topped breads prominently, allowing customers to see and smell the products before buying. Some bakers even begin preparing individual portions on demand, rather than selling only pre-made items. This shift toward customization and immediate service represents a fundamental change in how Italian food operates in American culture. By the late 1890s, you notice that some of these establishments began attracting attention from local newspapers and food writers, usually as curiosities rather than serious culinary destinations. Articles describe strange Italian breads topped with tomatoes and cheese, or exotic foods from the immigrant districts, often with a mixture of fascination and condescension that reflects broader American attitudes toward Italian immigrants. But this media attention, however patronizing, helps introduce Italian-American food to broader audiences. Some adventurous American food lovers begin seeking out these shops, treating visits to Little Italy as exotic culinary adventures. This early food tourism creates additional pressure for Italian-American bakers to modify their products for non-Italian tastes, accelerating the evolution toward distinctly American versions of Italian foods. The business model these establishments develop also proves remarkably resilient and scalable. By keeping operations simple, focusing on a few core products, and relying on household labor, they can serve large volumes of customers while maintaining quality and affordability. This approach will later serve as a template for pizza's expansion beyond immigrant neighborhoods. What I find particularly admirable about these early Italian-American bakers is their willingness to experiment without losing sight of their culinary heritage. They're not simply abandoning traditional methods, they're thoughtfully adapting them to new circumstances. When American ingredients require different techniques, they develop new techniques. When American customers prefer different flavors, they find ways to accommodate those preferences while maintaining the essential character of their food. During this period, you also observe the development of distinctly American pizza-adjacent innovations. Some bakers began offering tomato pie by the slice, recognizing that American customers often prefer individual portions to whole pies. Others experiment with reheating methods, discovering ways to make day-old topped breads taste fresh again. Still others develop delivery systems, bringing their products directly to customers' homes or workplaces. These innovations might seem minor, but they represent fundamental shifts in how Italian food operates in American culture. The emphasis on individual portions, convenience, and accessibility will eventually become defining characteristics of American pizza culture, distinguishing it from both its Neapolitan origins and other international pizza traditions. As you prepare to move forward in time, you can sense that these humble establishments have accomplished something remarkable. They've successfully transplanted Italian food traditions to American soil, adapted them to local conditions and preferences, and created sustainable business models that serve both Italian immigrants and American customers. More importantly, they've demonstrated that Italian food can appeal to American tastes without losing its essential character. The bakers working in these small shops have no way of knowing it, but they're developing the techniques, business practices, and cultural approaches that will eventually support pizza's transformation into a major American industry. Their patient experimentation with ingredients, their attention to customer preferences, and their willingness to innovate while respecting tradition are creating the foundation for everything that follows. The ovens continue glowing in these modest establishments. The smell of baking bread continues attracting curious customers, and somewhere in these simple transactions between immigrant bakers and American neighbors, the future of American pizza is quietly taking shape. You find yourself standing on a bustling New York street corner in 1905, watching something revolutionary happen at a small bakery that's about to change American food culture forever. The aroma of melted cheese and tomatoes drifts from the open doorway, but what's truly groundbreaking isn't the smell. It's the sight of customers walking away with individual triangular pieces of topped bread, eating them with their hands as they head back to work or continue their daily errands. This is where the story takes one of its most crucial turns, the moment when pizza transforms from a family meal or whole pie into something entirely new. Individual slices that anyone can afford, anyone can eat quickly, and anyone can enjoy without ceremony or special occasion. You're witnessing the birth of what will become one of America's most democratic food innovations, the pizza slice. The concept seems almost absurdly simple now, but in 1905, selling food by the individual portion rather than as complete meals represents a radical departure from both Italian tradition and American dining customs. Most restaurants serve full meals at tables. Bakeries sell whole loaves or complete pies. Even street food typically comes as complete items rather than portions of larger dishes. You observe how this innovation emerges from pure practicality rather than culinary vision. And honestly, I'm struck by how many food revolutions begin with someone simply trying to solve an immediate problem. The Italian-American bakers developing this slice system aren't thinking about transforming American cuisine. They're thinking about serving more customers with limited oven space, making their food accessible to people with limited money, and creating something portable enough for busy urban workers to eat on the go. The customers you see purchasing these early slices represent a cross-section of urban American life that wouldn't normally share dining experiences. Italian immigrant workers grab slices during brief lunch breaks. American factory workers discover this cheat, filling food that doesn't require sitting down or using utensils. Office clerks find it convenient for quick meals. Even children with a few pennies can afford their own individual portions. This democratic accessibility becomes one of pizza's defining characteristics in America, distinguishing it from more formal dining options and even from its own Italian origins, where pizza typically remained more of a regional specialty tied to specific social contexts. The technical challenges of selling individual slices also drive important innovations in pizza preparation and presentation. Bakers must figure out how to keep individual pieces warm and appealing throughout the day, how to cut topped breads into portions that hold together when picked up, and how to maintain quality when slices might sit for hours before being purchased. Some bakers experiment with thicker crusts that support toppings better when cut into wedges. Others develop reheating techniques that restore the texture and temperature of day-old slices. Still others modify their topping applications to ensure that cheese and tomatoes don't slide off when customers pick up individual pieces. These might seem like minor technical adjustments, but they represent fundamental changes in how pizza functions as food. The emphasis shifts from the communal experience of sharing a whole pie to the individual convenience of grab-and-go eating, from the social ritual of family meals to the practical necessity of quick urban dining. You notice how the slice system also creates new social dynamics around pizza consumption. Instead of pizza being something you eat at home with family or in restaurants with friends, it becomes something you can enjoy alone, something that doesn't require social coordination or advanced planning, something that fits into the rhythms of urban work life rather than traditional meal times. Food historians continue to debate which specific bakeries first implemented systematic slice sales, and whether this innovation developed simultaneously in multiple locations or spread from a single source. But the impact is undeniable regardless of its exact origins. By making pizza accessible to individual customers with limited time and money, the slice system opens up entirely new markets and possibilities for growth. The economics of slice sales also prove remarkably favorable for both bakers and customers. Individual portions allow bakers to serve many more customers from the same amount of prepared food, while customers can enjoy pizza without the expense of purchasing entire pies. This creates a sustainable business model that can operate at much higher volumes than traditional bakery sales. During this period, you also observe how slice sales begin influencing the social geography of Italian-American neighborhoods. Bakeries that offer slices attract more foot traffic throughout the day, becoming informal gathering places where people from different backgrounds encounter each other over shared food experiences. The informal nature of slice consumption also breaks down some of the social barriers that might prevent non-Italian customers from trying Italian food. There's something less intimidating about grabbing a quick slice than entering a restaurant and ordering an unfamiliar meal. The casual, accessible nature of slice sales makes pizza less foreign and more approachable to American customers who might otherwise avoid Italian establishments. You watch as this increased accessibility gradually changes how Americans think about Italian food in general. Pizza slices become a gateway that introduces people to Italian flavors and cooking styles, often leading them to become more adventurous about trying other Italian dishes and visiting Italian American businesses. What's particularly fascinating about this period is how the slice innovation spreads through Italian American communities, not through formal business networks or corporate expansion, but through the informal knowledge sharing that characterizes immigrant communities. Bakers observe what's working at other establishments, adapt successful techniques to their own operations, and gradually refine the slice system through collective experimentation. This organic development process creates regional variations in how slices are prepared and served. Some neighborhoods develop preferences for thicker slices that emphasize bread and cheese. Others favor thinner, crispier pieces that highlight the tomato sauce. Still others experiment with different cutting patterns or reheating methods, creating local traditions that will influence how pizza develops in different American cities. The success of slice sales also demonstrates something important about American food culture that will prove crucial for pizza's eventual national expansion. Americans embrace convenience and accessibility in ways that don't necessarily prioritize traditional authenticity or formal dining experiences. By 1910, you observe that slice sales have become common enough in Italian American neighborhoods to attract attention from business observers and social commentators. Some praise the innovation as an example of immigrant entrepreneurship and adaptation. Others criticize it as a departure from proper dining customs. But almost everyone acknowledges its growing popularity and economic success. The slice system also begins influencing how other ethnic food businesses operate in American cities. Jewish bakeries start offering individual portions of certain items. German establishments experiment with grab-and-go options. Even some American-born food businesses began adapting their service models to emphasize convenience and individual portions. This broader influence suggests that the pizza slice innovation taps into something fundamental about urban American life in the early 1900s, the need for food that accommodates fast-paced work schedules, limited budgets, and informal eating habits that don't require elaborate social arrangements. As you prepare to move forward in time, you can sense that this slice innovation has accomplished something profound. It has transformed pizza from an ethnic specialty into something that can appeal to mainstream American customers, not by changing the food itself dramatically, but by changing how people access and consume it. The bakers who developed slice sales have created a template that will eventually support pizza's expansion far beyond Italian American neighborhoods. The emphasis on individual portions, convenient service, and affordable pricing will become defining characteristics of American food culture that extend far beyond pizza, influencing everything from fast food to casual dining. Most importantly, the slice system demonstrates that successful food innovations often come from understanding customer needs rather than just perfecting recipes. The Italian-American bakers who pioneered slice sales weren't necessarily the best cooks, but they were the ones who figured out how to make their food fit into American urban life. The sound of busy street life continues outside these innovative bakeries. The aroma of individual slices continues attracting curious customers, and somewhere in these simple transactions, the foundation is being laid for pizza's transformation from immigrant food into American institution. You find yourself walking through American cities in the 1920s, where something remarkable is happening to pizza's social status. The Italian food that once existed primarily in immigrant neighborhoods is beginning to appear in unexpected places. Non-Italian establishments are experimenting with their own versions of tomato-topped breads. And American customers who have never set foot in Little Italy are discovering pizza through word of mouth, newspaper articles, and simple curiosity about this exotic, but increasingly accessible food. The 1920s bring a perfect storm of changes that accelerate pizza's expansion beyond Italian-American communities. Prohibition has closed many traditional saloons and restaurants, creating opportunities for new types of food businesses to emerge. The growing prosperity of the decade means more Americans have disposable income to spend on dining out and trying new foods. And the increasing mobility of urban populations, thanks to automobiles and public transportation, makes it easier for people to venture into neighborhoods they might not have visited before. You observe how pizza begins appearing in establishments that have no direct connection to Italian immigration. American-born entrepreneurs who have discovered pizza in Italian neighborhoods start opening their own versions, often adapting the concept to appeal more directly to non-Italian customers. Some focus on making the flavors milder and more familiar. Others emphasize the novelty and exoticism, but all recognize that there's a growing market for this food beyond its original community. The newspaper coverage of pizza during this period tells its own fascinating story, and I have to say, some of these early food writers had absolutely no idea what they were encountering. Articles describe pizza as everything from Italian bread pie to foreign flatbread with mysterious toppings, often with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism that reflects broader American attitudes toward unfamiliar foods. But this media attention, however confused, helps introduce pizza to audiences who might never have encountered it otherwise. Food columnists writing for mainstream newspapers began including pizza in their coverage of urban dining options. Restaurant guides start mentioning establishments that serve it. And social commentators begin noting its growing popularity among young Americans who are more adventurous about food than their parents. The speakeasy culture of Prohibition also plays an unexpected role in pizza's expansion. Many illegal drinking establishments need to serve food to maintain their cover as legitimate restaurants, and pizza proves ideal for this purpose. It's cheap to make, appeals to customers who have been drinking, and doesn't require elaborate kitchen facilities or skilled cooking staff. You notice how this association with speakeasies and nightlife begins changing pizza's cultural meaning in America. Instead of being primarily family food or working-class sustenance, it starts becoming associated with urban sophistication, rebellion against traditional dining customs. and the kind of adventurous eating that appeals to young Americans embracing the cultural changes of the Jazz Age. Restaurant entrepreneurs outside Italian neighborhoods begin experimenting with their own pizza variations, often with little understanding of traditional techniques, but plenty of enthusiasm for the commercial possibilities. Some create versions that are essentially American comfort food with Italian-inspired toppings. Others develop elaborate presentations that bear little resemblance to Neapolitan pizza but appeal to customers looking for exotic dining experiences. Food historians continue to debate whether this period represents pizza's Americanization or its corruption, with some arguing that distance from Italian tradition allowed for beneficial innovation, while others contend that authentic techniques and flavors were being lost in the pursuit of broader appeal. What's undeniable is that pizza was becoming something distinctly American rather than simply Italian food served in America. The economic dynamics of pizza during the 1920s also reveal important patterns that will shape its future development. Establishments serving pizza discover that it offers exceptional profit margins. The ingredients are relatively inexpensive. The preparation doesn't require highly skilled labor, and customers are willing to pay premium prices for what they perceive as exotic or sophisticated food. This economic attractiveness draws entrepreneurs who see pizza as a business opportunity rather than a cultural tradition, leading to rapid expansion and experimentation, but also to significant variations in quality and authenticity. Some of these new pizza establishments maintain high standards and respect for Italian techniques. Others focus primarily on profit and convenience, creating a wide spectrum of pizza quality that confuses customers and sometimes damages the food's reputation. During this period, you also observe the emergence of distinctly American pizza innovations that have little precedent in Italian tradition. Some establishments began offering pizza with toppings that would horrify traditional Italian cooks. Others experiment with different cooking methods, sweet sauces, or unusual cheese combinations, creating hybrid foods that appeal to American tastes while maintaining the basic concept of topped bread. The social dynamics around pizza consumption also continue evolving during the 1920s. What started as grab-and-go street food begins appearing in sit-down restaurants where it's presented as a dining experience rather than just quick sustenance. Some establishments develop elaborate rituals around pizza service, presenting it as entertainment as much as food, while others emphasize its casual, informal nature as an alternative to stuffy traditional dining. This diversification of pizza contexts and presentations helps expand its appeal to different types of customers and social situations. Pizza becomes something you can eat on a date, serve at parties, grab for lunch, or order for family dinners, adapting to multiple social roles rather than being confined to specific cultural contexts. The geographic expansion of pizza during this decade also accelerates significantly. Cities beyond the major East Coast immigration centers began developing their own pizza establishments, often started by Italian Americans who moved to new cities. but sometimes launched by non-Italian entrepreneurs who recognize the commercial opportunity. What's particularly interesting about this geographic spread is how it creates regional variations in American pizza culture almost from the beginning. Pizza in Boston develops differently than pizza in Philadelphia, which evolves along different lines than pizza in Chicago or Detroit. Each city adapts the basic concept to local ingredients, local tastes, and local dining customs, creating the foundation for the regional pizza identities that will become such an important part of American food culture. You observe how these regional differences emerged not just from Italian regional traditions, but from interaction with local American food preferences and available ingredients. A city with a strong German population might develop pizza variations influenced by German bread techniques, while a city with significant Irish immigration might adapt pizza to complement Irish dining customs. By the late 1920s, you notice that pizza has achieved something remarkable. It has become recognizably American food while maintaining enough connection to its Italian origins to retain cultural authenticity and appeal. This balance between adaptation and tradition creates a template for how ethnic foods can successfully integrate into mainstream American culture without losing their distinctive character. The success of pizza's expansion during the 1920s also demonstrates important principles about American food culture that will influence many other culinary developments. Americans embrace foods that offer convenience, value, and novelty, but they also respond to authenticity and cultural narratives that make eating feel like participation in something larger than simple nutrition. Pizza's ability to satisfy all these desires simultaneously, to be both familiar and exotic, both convenient and experiential, both affordable and sophisticated, helps explain why it succeeds where other ethnic foods struggle to break out of their original communities. As you prepare to move forward in time, you can sense that pizza has crossed a crucial threshold during this decade. It has moved from being immigrant food to being American food with immigrant origins, from being neighborhood specialty to being urban phenomenon, from being cultural curiosity to being commercial success. The establishments serving pizza continue expanding beyond Italian neighborhoods. The customers continue diversifying beyond Italian immigrants, and somewhere in this ongoing transformation, pizza is becoming something that will eventually define American food culture rather than simply participating in it. You find yourself standing in the midst of post-war America in 1948, where returning veterans are settling into suburban neighborhoods with their young families. New cars are filling driveways, and something extraordinary is happening to the American food landscape. The economic prosperity following World War II is creating opportunities that no one could have imagined during the Depression. And pizza is about to benefit from this transformation in ways that will reshape both the food industry and American dining culture. The suburban expansion of the late 1940s and 1950s creates a perfect environment for pizza's next evolutionary leap. Young families moving to new neighborhoods need convenient dining options. Working parents juggle busy schedules that don't always accommodate elaborate meal preparation. And the growing car culture makes it easier for people to travel farther for food that appeals to them. Pizza, with its combination of affordability, convenience, and broad appeal, emerges as an ideal solution to these new lifestyle demands. You observe how Italian American restaurant owners, many of them second-generation immigrants who grew up adapting their families' traditions to American tastes, begin opening establishments specifically designed for suburban customers rather than urban ethnic communities. These new pizzerias represent something entirely different from the neighborhood bakeries where pizza first gained American popularity. The suburban pizzerias you're witnessing feature innovations that seem obvious now, but were revolutionary at the time. Many offer table service rather than just counter sales, creating a more restaurant-like experience that appeals to families looking for casual dining options. Some experiment with larger dining rooms, parking lots, and even early versions of what we'd recognize as family entertainment, making pizza restaurants destinations rather than just food sources. The customer base for these suburban pizzerias also represents a dramatic expansion beyond pizza's traditional audience. You see American families with no Italian heritage discovering pizza as a regular dining option, teenagers adopting pizzerias as social gathering places, and business people using them for informal meetings and celebrations. Pizza is becoming genuinely mainstream American food rather than ethnic specialty with crossover appeal. What's particularly fascinating about this period, and honestly, I find the business innovation as impressive as the culinary development, is how pizza restaurant owners figure out the economics of suburban dining. The combination of higher volume sales, family-oriented pricing, and operational efficiency allows these establishments to offer better food at lower prices than many traditional restaurants while maintaining healthy profit margins. The post-war labor market also creates favorable conditions for pizza's expansion. Many returning veterans are looking for business opportunities that don't require extensive capital or specialized training, and pizza restaurants prove ideal for entrepreneurial ambitions. The basic techniques can be learned relatively quickly. The equipment needs are modest compared to full-service restaurants, and the market demand is clearly growing. You witness the emergence of what food historians now recognize as the first generation of truly American pizza entrepreneurs. People who may have learned pizza-making techniques from Italian-American mentors, but who approach the business with distinctly American perspectives on customer service, marketing, and expansion. These entrepreneurs begin developing systems and approaches that will eventually support pizza's transformation into a national industry. Business records from this period, documented through local business licenses and newspaper coverage, show pizza restaurants opening at an unprecedented rate in suburban communities across the country. What started as primarily an East Coast phenomenon begins appearing in Midwest cities, southern towns, and western communities, often adapted to local tastes and dining preferences, but maintaining the essential appeal of affordable, convenient, family-friendly food. The technological innovations of the post-war period also contribute significantly to pizza's suburban success. Improved commercial ovens make it easier to achieve consistent results with less skilled labor. Better refrigeration allows restaurants to maintain fresher ingredients and prepare components in advance. And new food processing techniques create opportunities for standardization that reduces costs while maintaining quality. You observe how these technological advances allow pizza restaurants to serve larger volumes of customers more efficiently, making it possible to offer lower prices while maintaining profitability. This creates a positive feedback loop where increased accessibility leads to broader customer adoption, which creates demand for even more convenient and affordable service. The social dynamics around pizza consumption also continue evolving during this period in ways that reflect broader changes in American family life and social customs. Pizza becomes associated with casual family dining, relaxed social interaction, and informal celebration rather than special occasion eating. Some scholars suggest this represents a democratization of dining out, making restaurant meals accessible to middle-class families who couldn't afford more formal establishments. During the early 1950s, you notice that pizza begins appearing in contexts that would have been unimaginable just a decade earlier. School fundraisers feature pizza nights, church groups organize pizza parties, and business organizations use pizza restaurants for meetings and social events. This institutional adoption helps establish pizza as legitimate American food rather than ethnic curiosity or novelty item. The geographic expansion of pizza during this period also creates interesting patterns of regional adaptation that will influence American food culture for decades to come. Pizza arriving in Chicago encounters local preferences for hearty, substantial food that leads to innovations in crust thickness and topping quantities. Pizza in California adapts to local ingredients and health-conscious dining trends, while pizza in the South incorporates regional flavors and cooking techniques. These regional variations emerge not just from local tastes, but from practical considerations about available ingredients, local competition, and regional business practices. The result is a diverse landscape of American pizza styles that maintain family resemblance while developing distinct local characteristics. What I find particularly remarkable about this period is how pizza manages to become mainstream American food without losing its essential appeal or character. The suburban pizza restaurants you're observing successfully balance authenticity with accessibility, tradition with innovation, and ethnic identity with broad appeal. This balancing act creates a template for how immigrant foods can achieve true American integration. The success of suburban pizza expansion also demonstrates important principles about American consumer behavior that will influence food marketing and restaurant development for generations. Americans respond enthusiastically to foods that offer good value, convenient service, and flexible social contexts, but they also appreciate authenticity, quality, and cultural narratives that make eating feel meaningful rather than purely functional. By the mid-1950s, you observe that pizza has achieved something unprecedented in American food history. It has become a significant restaurant category, a popular food choice for diverse demographic groups, and a cultural institution that appears in movies, television shows, and popular music as a symbol of American casual dining and social life. The business models developed during this suburban expansion phase also prove remarkably durable and scalable. The emphasis on family-friendly atmosphere, efficient service, and affordable pricing creates operational templates that will eventually support pizza's transformation into one of America's largest restaurant categories. The entrepreneurs pioneering these approaches have no way of knowing it, but they're developing the foundation for an industry that will eventually generate billions of dollars in annual revenue. As you prepare to move forward in time, you can sense that pizza has crossed another crucial threshold during this post-war period. It has moved from being urban phenomenon to being suburban institution, from being ethnic specialty to being American standard, from being business opportunity to being cultural force that influences how Americans think about food, family, and social interaction. The suburban pizzerias continue attracting customers from diverse backgrounds. The parking lots continue filling with families seeking convenient, enjoyable dining experiences, and somewhere in this ongoing success, pizza is establishing itself as such a fundamental part of American food culture that future generations will grow up unable to imagine life without it. You find yourself standing in a bustling commercial kitchen in 1958, watching engineers and food scientists work alongside experienced pizza makers to solve problems that will transform how America eats. The air hums with the sound of new machinery, conveyor belt ovens that can bake hundreds of pizzas per hour, industrial mixers that produce consistent dough in massive quantities, and refrigeration systems that can store pre-made components for weeks without spoiling. This is where pizza begins its transformation from restaurant food into mass market product, and the innovations you're witnessing will eventually put pizza within reach of every American household. The technological revolution of the 1950s and 1960s creates opportunities for pizza that extend far beyond traditional restaurant service. Entrepreneurs and food scientists recognize that pizza's basic components, bread, tomato sauce, and cheese, can be manufactured, packaged, and distributed using the same industrial processes that are transforming other areas of American food production. What they're developing isn't just frozen pizza, it's an entirely new category of convenient food that will reshape American eating habits. The engineering challenges of mass-producing pizza prove more complex than anyone initially anticipates. You observe teams of technicians experimenting with dough formulations that can survive freezing and reheating, sauce recipes that maintain flavor and texture after months in storage, and cheese blends that melt properly after being frozen solid. Each component requires different solutions, and the interactions between components create additional complications that demand innovative approaches. The first successful frozen pizzas emerged from this research in the late 1950s, and honestly, I'm amazed by how quickly they capture American attention despite being quite different from restaurant pizza. These early products prioritize convenience and shelf life over authentic flavor, but they offer something revolutionary: the ability to enjoy pizza at home without any special skills, equipment, or preparation time. You witness the development of entirely new distribution and marketing systems designed specifically for frozen pizza. Grocery stores install freezer cases. Delivery trucks equipped with refrigeration bring products to markets across the country, and advertising campaigns introduce American families to the concept of pizza as home food rather than restaurant experience. The infrastructure being created will eventually support thousands of different frozen food products, but pizza serves as one of the crucial pioneers that prove the market potential. The business model for frozen pizza also represents a fundamental shift in how food companies think about product development and customer relationships. Instead of serving customers directly through restaurants, frozen pizza manufacturers must appeal to grocery retailers, understand home cooking behavior, and create products that satisfy families with diverse tastes and preferences. This requires different expertise, different marketing approaches, and different quality standards than traditional food service. During this period, you observe how frozen pizza creates entirely new patterns of food consumption within American families. Parents discover they can keep frozen pizzas on hand for quick meals when cooking seems too complicated or time-consuming. Teenagers learn they can prepare their own food without adult supervision, and families develop new traditions around casual home dining that doesn't require elaborate preparation or cleanup. The social implications of this convenience extend beyond simple meal planning. Frozen pizza enables more spontaneous social gatherings, allows families to accommodate different schedules and preferences more easily, and creates opportunities for children to participate in food preparation in ways that feel independent and grown up. You're witnessing the emergence of food technology that supports changing American lifestyles rather than requiring families to adapt to traditional cooking schedules. Food historians continue to debate whether the rise of frozen pizza represents culinary progress or cultural decline, with some arguing that convenience products liberate families from kitchen drudgery, while others contend that they undermine traditional cooking skills and family meal traditions. What's undeniable is that frozen pizza responds to real needs and desires among American consumers, creating a market that grows rapidly throughout the 1960s. The manufacturing innovations developed for frozen pizza also influence how fresh pizza is produced in restaurants and commercial kitchens. Techniques for standardizing dough preparation, portion control systems for consistent topping application, and quality control methods for maintaining standards across multiple locations all emerge from the research and development efforts focused on mass production. These advances help pizza restaurants improve efficiency, reduce costs, and maintain consistency as they expand beyond single locations. You notice how the success of frozen pizza also drives innovation in kitchen appliances and home cooking equipment. Oven manufacturers begin designing products specifically optimized for frozen pizza preparation. Cookbook publishers develop guides for enhancing and customizing frozen products. And kitchen accessory companies create tools that help home cooks achieve better results with convenience foods. The economic impact of frozen pizza extends far beyond food manufacturing, creating new jobs in packaging, distribution, marketing, and retail while generating tax revenue and economic activity in communities across the country. The success of early frozen pizza products demonstrates the potential for other convenience foods, leading to investment and innovation that transforms the entire American food system. What's particularly interesting about this technological revolution is how it creates feedback loops that influence restaurant pizza as well. As Americans become more familiar with pizza through frozen products, they develop stronger preferences and expectations that restaurant operators must address. Some restaurants emphasize their superiority to frozen alternatives, while others adapt their offerings to match the flavors and styles that customers have learned to expect from mass market products. The ingredient supply chains developed for frozen pizza manufacturing also benefit restaurant operators, who gain access to more consistent, affordable cheese, sauce, and other components. The economies of scale achieved through mass production create cost savings that help make fresh pizza more affordable and accessible across different market segments. By the early 1960s, you observe that frozen pizza has achieved something remarkable. It has made pizza a regular part of American home dining rather than just restaurant food or special occasion eating. Grocery store sales data shows frozen pizza becoming one of the fastest growing categories in the frozen food section, while market research reveals that families across different demographic groups have adopted it as a standard menu option. The success of frozen pizza also influences how food companies think about innovation and product development more broadly. The combination of convenience, affordability, and broad appeal that makes frozen pizza successful becomes a template for other products, leading to expansion of the entire convenience food industry. Pizza serves as proof that American consumers will embrace products that sacrifice some traditional qualities in exchange for significant improvements in convenience and accessibility. What I find most impressive about this period is how technological innovation and changing social needs come together to create entirely new possibilities for food consumption. The engineers and entrepreneurs developing frozen pizza aren't just solving technical problems. They're responding to fundamental changes in how American families live, work, and eat together. The manufacturing facilities continue humming with activity. The distribution trucks continue carrying frozen pizzas to markets across the country. And somewhere in this ongoing technological revolution, pizza is establishing itself not just as restaurant food or fresh product, but as a fundamental component of American home dining that will influence family meal patterns for generations to come. As you prepare to move forward in time, you can sense that these technological innovations have opened doors that will never close. Pizza has become not just a food that Americans enjoy, but a category of convenience that supports the increasingly complex, fast-paced lifestyles that define modern American family life. You find yourself traveling across America in the late 1960s and early 1970s, witnessing something extraordinary happening in cities from coast to coast. Pizza, which began as a single tradition transplanted from Naples, is evolving into distinctly American regional cuisines that reflect local tastes, ingredients, and cultural preferences. What you're observing isn't just the spread of pizza, it's the birth of American pizza traditions that will inspire passionate loyalty and heated debates for generations to come. In Chicago, you discover pizza transforming into something that would astonish traditional Italian pizza makers. The deep dish style emerging here represents a fundamental reimagining of what pizza can be, with thick, buttery crusts that rise several inches high, creating vessels for generous layers of cheese, chunky tomato sauce, and hearty toppings. This is an adaptation of Neapolitan techniques. It's innovation that treats pizza as a starting point for entirely new culinary possibilities. The Chicago approach reflects the city's broader food culture, which emphasizes substantial, satisfying meals that can sustain people through harsh winters and demanding work schedules. Local restaurant owners, many with backgrounds in various European culinary traditions rather than specifically Italian heritage, create pizza styles that appeal to Chicago's diverse population while establishing something uniquely local. Meanwhile, in New York, you observe pizza developing along completely different lines that emphasize the city's fast-paced urban lifestyle and cultural sophistication. The thin crust style becoming dominant here prioritizes portability, speed of service, and the kind of technical skill that allows pizza makers to serve large volumes of customers efficiently. New York pizza represents the ultimate evolution of the slice innovation you witnessed decades earlier, perfected for a city where people eat on the go and expect excellence despite minimal time and patience. The rivalry between Chicago and New York pizza styles that you're witnessing isn't just about food preferences. It's about regional identity and cultural values. Chicago pizza embodies the Midwest's appreciation for hearty, substantial food that brings people together around tables for leisurely meals. New York pizza reflects the East Coast's emphasis on efficiency, sophistication, and individual convenience that accommodates busy urban lifestyles. Food historians continue to debate which factors most influence these regional developments, whether they emerged primarily from Italian regional traditions brought by different immigrant groups, local ingredient availability, or simply the creative responses of individual entrepreneurs to local market conditions. But the results speak for themselves in terms of creating distinct American pizza cultures. In California, you discover pizza evolving in yet another direction that reflects the state's innovative approach to food and health-conscious dining trends. West Coast pizza pioneers begin experimenting with ingredients that would seem radical in more traditional pizza regions: fresh vegetables, unconventional cheeses, and even early versions of what will later become known as California cuisine, with its emphasis on local ingredients and creative combinations. The California approach to pizza also reflects the state's cultural openness to experimentation and its relative freedom from established food traditions. Without the weight of Italian American community expectations or regional food customs, California pizza makers feel free to treat pizza as a platform for culinary creativity rather than a tradition to be preserved or modified cautiously. During this same period, you observe similar regional innovations developing across the country, each reflecting local tastes and cultural influences. Detroit develops its own distinctive style with crispy, rectangular crusts and specific cheese preferences, while regions of the South begin incorporating local flavors and cooking techniques that create hybrid traditions unique to their communities. What's particularly fascinating about this regional diversification, and honestly, I find it remarkable how quickly these distinct traditions establish themselves, is how it demonstrates pizza's extraordinary adaptability as a food concept. Unlike many ethnic foods that maintain relatively consistent characteristics across different locations, pizza proves capable of absorbing local influences while maintaining enough core identity to remain recognizable as pizza. The business dynamics driving these regional innovations also reveal important patterns about American food entrepreneurship and market development. Successful regional pizza styles typically emerge from operators who understand both pizza fundamentals and local dining preferences, creating products that satisfy customers seeking familiar comfort while offering something distinctive that can't be found elsewhere. You notice how these regional styles also begin influencing each other as Americans become more mobile and curious about food from different parts of the country. Chicago-style pizza appears in other cities as novelty or specialty option. New York-style techniques spread through restaurant industry networks, and California innovations begin appearing in markets far from the West Coast. The media coverage of regional pizza styles during this period also contributes to their development and recognition. Food writers begin treating pizza styles as legitimate culinary traditions worthy of serious attention rather than just ethnic food curiosities. Magazine articles, television features, and restaurant reviews help establish regional pizza identities while creating customer awareness that supports specialized establishments. This media attention also begins creating the kind of passionate customer loyalty that characterizes American pizza culture. People develop strong preferences for particular styles, often connected to regional pride or personal memories, leading to the kind of heated debates about pizza quality and authenticity that become part of American food discourse. The economic success of distinctive regional pizza styles also encourages further innovation and refinement. Restaurants that create unique local approaches often achieve competitive advantages that allow them to command premium prices, attract customers from beyond their immediate neighborhoods, and build the kind of reputation that supports expansion or franchising opportunities. By the mid-1970s, you observe that American pizza has achieved something unprecedented in the history of immigrant foods. Instead of gradually losing distinctiveness as it becomes more mainstream, pizza has actually become more diverse and regionally specific, creating multiple American traditions that coexist while maintaining distinct identities and passionate followings. This diversification also reflects broader changes in American food culture during this period, as regional cuisines gain recognition and respect. Travel becomes more common and accessible, and Americans develop more sophisticated palates and greater interest in food as cultural expression rather than just nutrition. The regional pizza traditions you're witnessing also demonstrate important principles about how successful ethnic foods adapt to American conditions. Rather than simply becoming more generic or Americanized, pizza succeeds by becoming more specifically adapted to different American communities and preferences, creating local traditions that feel both authentic and familiar to their particular audiences. What I find most impressive about this period of regional innovation is how it creates a foundation for pizza's continued evolution and growth. By establishing multiple successful models for American pizza, these regional pioneers prove that pizza can succeed in diverse markets with different approaches, encouraging further experimentation and adaptation that will continue for decades. The regional pizza styles emerging during this period also begin influencing American food culture more broadly, demonstrating that ethnic foods can become integral parts of local culinary identities rather than remaining forever foreign or exotic. Pizza's success in developing distinctly American regional traditions creates a template that other ethnic foods will later follow. As you prepare to move forward in time, you can sense that these regional innovations have accomplished something profound. They've transformed pizza from a single ethnic food tradition into a diverse category of American regional cuisines, each with its own identity, techniques, and cultural meanings, but all sharing enough common heritage to remain part of the same larger food family. The pizza ovens continue glowing in restaurants across America, each region developing its own approaches to this remarkably adaptable food. And somewhere in this ongoing diversification, pizza is establishing itself not just as American food, but as a fundamental part of American regional food culture that reflects the diversity and creativity of the country itself. You find yourself standing in America in the late 1970s, where something remarkable has happened to the simple Italian flatbread that first arrived with immigrant families nearly a century ago. Pizza has become so thoroughly woven into American culture that children grow up unable to imagine life without it. Teenagers gather around pizza tables for birthday parties and social celebrations, and families rely on pizza delivery as a routine solution to busy weeknight dinner dilemmas. What began as exotic ethnic food has transformed into something as fundamentally American as baseball, jazz music, or suburban shopping malls. The pizza delivery culture emerging during this period represents perhaps the final piece of pizza's American transformation. The combination of telephone ordering, Reliable automotive transportation and urban density creates possibilities for bringing restaurant-quality food directly to customers' homes in ways that were unimaginable just decades earlier. Pizza proves ideally suited for delivery, maintaining quality during transport, appealing to diverse tastes within families, and offering the convenience that increasingly busy American lifestyles demand. You observe how pizza delivery creates entirely new patterns of family dining and social interaction. Instead of gathering around home-cooked meals or visiting restaurants, families can enjoy restaurant food in the comfort of their own homes, while teenagers can order pizza for parties without adult supervision. And working parents can provide satisfying dinners without cooking or cleanup. Pizza delivery doesn't just deliver food. It delivers convenience that supports the complex scheduling demands of modern American family life. The cultural significance of pizza by this period extends far beyond simple nutrition or convenience. Pizza appears in movies and television shows as shorthand for American urban life, casual social interaction, and the kind of unpretentious eating that appeals to people across different social and economic backgrounds. When filmmakers want to show characters being relaxed, friendly, or authentically American, they often include scenes of people sharing pizza. This cultural integration also reflects pizza's unique ability to satisfy multiple American values simultaneously. Pizza represents both tradition and innovation, both ethnic heritage and mainstream acceptance, both individual choice and communal sharing, both convenience and quality. These contradictions, rather than creating confusion, actually strengthen pizza's appeal by allowing different people to find different meanings in the same food. Food historians now recognize pizza's American journey as one of the most successful examples of ethnic food integration in American history, surpassing even hamburgers and hot dogs in terms of achieving universal acceptance while maintaining cultural distinctiveness. What makes pizza's success particularly remarkable is how it accomplished this integration without losing its essential character or becoming completely generic. The economic impact of pizza's full American integration by the late 1970s also demonstrates the scale of transformation you've been witnessing. Pizza has become a multi-billion-dollar industry that employs hundreds of thousands of Americans, supports vast networks of suppliers and distributors, and generates significant tax revenue for communities across the country. This economic success creates positive feedback loops that encourage continued innovation, expansion, and quality improvement. You notice how pizza's success also influences broader trends in American food service and restaurant development. The operational models developed by pizza restaurants emphasizing efficiency, consistency, and customer convenience become templates that other food businesses adapt for their own purposes. The franchise systems, delivery networks, and marketing approaches pioneered by pizza companies help shape how many other restaurant categories develop and expand. The social rituals that have developed around pizza consumption also reveal important aspects of American culture and values. Pizza parties become standard celebrations for children. Pizza delivery becomes the default solution for group gatherings, and pizza restaurants become neutral social spaces where people from different backgrounds can interact comfortably. These social functions help pizza serve purposes that extend far beyond simple food provision. What I find most remarkable about pizza's complete American integration is how it maintains connections to its Italian origins while becoming something distinctly American. The basic techniques, ingredients, and concepts remain recognizably related to Neapolitan traditions, but the applications, variations, and cultural meanings have evolved to reflect American preferences, lifestyles, and values. This represents ethnic food adaptation at its most successful, preserving essential character while achieving mainstream acceptance. The regional diversity that has developed within American pizza culture also demonstrates the country's ability to create local traditions within national phenomena. Chicago, New York, California, and other regions have developed pizza styles that feel authentically local while participating in the broader American pizza culture. This balance between national unity and regional diversity reflects fundamental characteristics of American society more broadly. By the late 1970s, you observe that pizza has achieved something that seemed impossible when the first Italian immigrants began selling topped flatbreads on American streets. It has become simultaneously ethnic food and American food, traditional cuisine and modern convenience, local specialty and national standard, restaurant meal and home dining option. These multiple identities coexist without contradiction because pizza has proven flexible enough to satisfy different needs and preferences simultaneously. The technological innovations, business models, and cultural adaptations that supported pizza's American integration also create foundations for continued evolution and growth. The infrastructure developed for pizza delivery supports other food delivery services. The franchise systems pioneered by pizza companies become models for other restaurant categories. And the regional variations that have emerged demonstrate pizza's continued capacity for innovation and adaptation. Looking at pizza's complete transformation from immigrant specialty to American institution, you can see how successful ethnic foods integrate into American culture not by abandoning their origins, but by adapting those origins to American conditions and preferences. Pizza's Italian heritage remains visible and important, but it has been modified, expanded, and reinterpreted to create something that feels both authentically Italian and authentically American. The pizza delivery drivers continue navigating American streets. The regional pizza styles continue developing their own traditions and techniques, and somewhere in this ongoing evolution, pizza has established itself not just as American food, but as a fundamental part of American life that influences how families eat, socialize, and think about food convenience and quality. As you reflect on the complete journey you've witnessed, from ancient Roman flatbreads to American pizza delivery, you can appreciate the remarkable transformation that has occurred. What began as practical solutions to dining problems in ancient kitchens has evolved into a food culture that supports modern American lifestyles while maintaining connections to centuries of culinary tradition. The simple concept of topped bread has proven capable of infinite variation and adaptation, responding to changing ingredients, technologies, social needs, and cultural preferences while retaining enough essential character to remain recognizable across time and geography. Pizza's success demonstrates the power of food to bridge cultures, adapt to new circumstances, and create shared experiences that bring people together regardless of their backgrounds or differences. Most importantly, pizza's American journey illustrates how immigrant contributions to American culture often succeed not by disappearing into generic Americanness, but by maintaining their distinctiveness while becoming integral parts of American life. Pizza remains recognizably connected to its Italian origins, but it has also become something uniquely American that reflects the country's values, preferences, and way of life. The ovens continue glowing in pizza restaurants across America. The delivery drivers continue bringing convenience and satisfaction to American families, and somewhere in this ongoing success, the simple slice of pizza has become a symbol of American food culture's ability to embrace, adapt, and transform traditions from around the world into something that feels both familiar and distinctly our own. Pizza's revolution is complete, but its evolution continues, carrying forward the legacy of that first slice that sparked a culinary transformation no one could have imagined when Italian immigrants first began sharing their humble topped breads with curious American neighbors. The night air feels softer now, like the gentle warmth that once drifted from those ancient Roman ovens, carrying with it the promise of comfort and satisfaction that has connected people across centuries. You've traveled such a long way tonight, from Mediterranean kitchens where bakers first discovered the magic of topped bread, through crowded ships carrying hopes and recipes to new shores, past bustling neighborhoods where families adapted old traditions to new possibilities, and finally to the America we know today, where pizza has become as natural and necessary as breathing. It's remarkable how food carries stories, isn't it? How a simple combination of bread and tomatoes and cheese can hold within it the dreams of immigrants, the creativity of entrepreneurs, the ingenuity of inventors, and the hunger of millions of families seeking something delicious and comforting at the end of long days. Every slice of pizza eaten today connects us to that ancient lineage of bakers and dreamers who believed that simple ingredients, prepared with care, could create something magical. The pizza ovens across America continue glowing quietly tonight, in neighborhood shops where families still roll dough by hand, in busy kitchens where conveyor belts carry thousands of pies to hungry customers, in homes where parents slide frozen pizzas into ovens while children wait eagerly at kitchen tables. All of these moments, connected by invisible threads to those first Italian immigrants who carried their knowledge across an ocean, trusting that their food could find new homes in unfamiliar places. Perhaps what's most beautiful about pizza's story is how it proves that the best revolutions happen quietly, through small acts of sharing and adaptation, through the patience of people who believe in their traditions enough to let them grow and change, through the curiosity of others willing to try something new and make it their own. The first pizza slice that sparked this culinary revolution wasn't dramatic or earth-shaking. It was simply delicious, accessible, and perfectly suited to the moment when it appeared. As you settle deeper into rest tonight, let your thoughts drift like the aroma of baking bread, soft and warm and comforting, carrying you toward the kind of peaceful sleep that comes from stories well told and journeys completed. Your breathing can slow to match the gentle rhythm of rising dough, patient and steady and natural, while your mind releases the day's concerns like steam rising from a perfectly baked crust. The world outside grows quieter now, but somewhere, pizza ovens continue their ancient work, bakers continue kneading tomorrow's dough, and families continue gathering around tables where simple food creates complex memories. This gentle continuity, this reliable comfort, this promise that some things endure and nourish us across time, can carry you softly into the deepest, most restorative sleep. Close your eyes now and let the warmth of this story settle around you like a favorite blanket. Let the sounds of the night fade into the background, replaced by the quiet satisfaction of understanding how something wonderful came to be. Your body can relax completely, knowing that tonight's journey is complete, that the questions have been answered, and that sleep is the perfect conclusion to an evening well spent. Perhaps you'll dream of ancient kitchens, or bustling immigrant neighborhoods, or maybe just the simple pleasure of sharing good food with people you care about. Whatever images drift through your sleeping mind, let them be warm and gentle, like the glow of pizza ovens that have connected strangers across centuries, bringing comfort and nourishment to anyone hungry for something good. Rest well, knowing that the best stories, like the best foods, are the ones that bring us together, satisfy our deepest hungers, and remind us that simple pleasures, shared with others, are often the most revolutionary acts of all. Sweet dreams.